In the smothering twilight of a city where rigid laws strangled every semblance of freedom, Jade moved like a shadow on a mission of her own making. Her life until then had been a quiet struggle against the subjugation of a society intent on suppressing individuality. Jade's piercing eyes, alight with the ember of rebellion, belied a history of suppressed passion and secret dreams. Every heartbeat, every breath, resonated with a fierce desire to break free, even if it meant defying the very foundations of the world she had known. On one particularly murky evening, under the dismal glow of street lamps that seemed to weep for the lost souls of the urban sprawl, fate set its stage. In an alleyway veiled by graffiti and whispers of the past, Jade encountered Vaughn, a man who was anything but ordinary. Vaughn, the enigmatic alpha with a notorious defiant soul, exuded a quiet authority and raw magnetism that could liberate or destroy those who dared cross his path. His dark eyes held the weight of countless untold secrets, and the primal energy that surged through him hinted at an existence beyond the mundane. Their first words, exchanged in a charged silence, were a promise of the tumult that was to follow. Vaughn's voice, deep and resonant, broke the oppressive quiet. "Are you truly ready to abandon a life of shadows?" Jade's reply, equally measured but laced with uncertainty, echoed back, "I refuse to be caged any longer." Thus began a daring bond, a connection that was both magnetic and dangerous. In that moment, as the relentless hum of the city became the backdrop to their clandestine meeting, Jade understood that Vaughn's liberating force was the key to unlocking not only her physical chains but also the confines of her soul. Their union was a dance of duality, a blend of rebellion and the tender promise of redemption. As their journey unfolded, the backdrop of a modern America infused with ancient mysticism became ever more vivid. Vaughn, though an imposing figure, carried the scars of a haunted past, a past that had left him with a burden of secrets that gnawed at his very being. His lineage as a werewolf shifter was more than a mere fact. It was a crucible of power and pain, a legacy of battles fought in the dead of night against creatures both human and inhuman. His rebel spirit was fueled by a desire to break from the traditions that chained him to a predestined fate. Jade, initially captivated by the thrill of escape, soon discovered that following Vaughn meant an irrevocable departure from all that had been familiar. With every stolen moment, the stakes escalated, echoing footsteps in empty corridors, coded whispers over clandestine phone calls, and run-ins with enforcers of an oppressive regime on both human and supernatural fronts. The city itself transformed into a labyrinth of danger and seduction, where every dark corner held the potential for both solace and betrayal. In the early days of their harrowing flight, moments of intense introspection intertwined seamlessly with explosive encounters. Jade recalled memories of a once secure childhood, now as fragmented as distant echoes, and felt the sting of nostalgia amid the chaos. Yet, in the overwhelming presence of Vaughn, she began to see a path toward not merely liberation, but redemption from her tainted past. Their journey was punctuated by visceral confrontations, not only with the external forces that threatened to capture them but also with the insidious demons that resided within each of their souls. Late one starlit night, while escaping through a dense forest on the city's outskirts, the pair found temporary solace beneath the ancient boughs. The natural world, as if in quiet rebellion against urban tyranny, whispered secrets of forgotten times and the possibility of rebirth. As the moon cast silver ribbons over the treetops, Vaughn revealed fragments of his story, a confession that spoke of a family curse, forbidden love, and treacherous alliances forged in the heat of betrayal. His voice trembled with both remorse and defiance as he admitted, "Every sacrifice, every wound has led me here, to you, to this moment when hope still flickers in the darkness." Jade's heart, already a battleground of conflicting loyalties, throbbed with both empathy and trepidation. Could she trust a man whose past was as murky as the night itself? The palpable tension between them was underlined by intense dialogues that merged destiny with choice. "Vaughn," she once pleaded, her eyes glistening under the lunar light, "if embracing you means leaving my past behind entirely, then show me a future where I can love without fear." His answer, as steady and resolute as his gaze, affirmed a commitment to defy the fates that sought to entrap them both. Even as these declarations unfolded, the specter of relentless pursuers, agents of a corrupt system bent on squashing any form of dissent, loomed large. The authorities, driven by a rigid adherence to laws meant to contain the supernatural, pursued them with an unyielding fervor. In high-tension sequences reminiscent of a thriller, car chases through neon-lit streets merged with tense confrontations in abandoned warehouses, each encounter heightening the stakes. Dialogue during these sequences crackled with urgency. "We are not just fugitives, Vaughn would whisper over the roaring engine. We are the sparks of a rebellion destined to ignite the chains of oppression. Amid these escapades, the narrative also delved deeply into family dynamics and ancestral legacies. Jade's estranged family was not just a subplot, but a mirror reflecting the pain of generational betrayals. Old secrets buried beneath layers of shame and resentment began to surface. In quiet moments, as rain drummed softly against grimy windows and safe houses, Jade's inner voice roared with the recollections of love lost and trust broken. These fragments of her past resonated with the themes of betrayal and redemption, a duality that shook her resolve and yet ignited her inner strength. As they ventured deeper into dangerous territories, a clandestine circle of werewolf shifters emerged, one steeped in ancient rituals and bound by codes that challenged every social order. Within this pack, alliances were fluid, loyalty was tested, and every relationship bore the weight of hidden motives. The tension between freedom and duty manifested in heated debates around flickering campfires, with old-world wisdom clashing against modern ideologies. Here, the protagonists encountered characters whose allegiances were as unpredictable as the shifting phases of the moon, each conversation a puzzle piece of the larger conspiracy they were about to unravel. The narrative was not solely propelled by thrilling chase sequences or the unveiling of dark conspiracies. It was equally enriched by tender, intimate moments of connection that revealed the vulnerable humanity behind the supernatural veneer. In a moment of rare stillness, Jade and Vaughn found themselves alone in a deserted chapel on the edge of the wilderness. The dilapidated sanctity of the old building stood in stark contrast to the relentless chaos outside. Here, in whispered conversations cushioned by echoes of hymns long past, they laid bare their scars. I've been haunted by more than just my past, Jade confessed softly. Every step I take with you peels back another layer of truth that I'm not sure I'm ready to face. Vaughn's reply, a promise tempered with pain and determination, reassured her. Together we can redefine our fates, even if it means challenging the very order of nature. Yet as moments of vulnerability and hope intermingled, so did layers of mystery deepen. Clues about a hidden agenda, one that implicated some of the most trusted figures in both their lives, began to surface. Cryptic messages, strange symbols painted in secret locations, and snippets of overheard conversations hinted at a formidable adversary orchestrating a web of betrayal. Every new discovery unraveled yet another thread in a tapestry woven with the power of legacy and the inevitability of destiny. By the time the night gave way to a bruised dawn, Jade and Vaughn realized that their rebellion was not only a fight for personal freedom but an ideological war against an unforgiving system. The forbidden nature of their love, set against the backdrop of age-old customs and modern tyranny, promised both salvation and devastation. Their arduous journey was punctuated by stark contrasts. The serene beauty of natural landscapes bathed in early light and the grim industrial enormity of the urban sprawl, where oppression wore 1,000 faces. The emotional cadence of the tale was heightened by a series of heart-wrenching dialogues and poignant soliloquies. In one such moment, while recuperating in a hidden sanctuary deep within a derelict forest cabin, Jade reached out to Vaughn. How do I know if I'm daring enough to unearth the truth of my own lineage? She questioned, her words tremulous with hope and fear intertwined. Vaughn, staring into the flickering flames of a modest hearth, responded with an assurance that hinted at both mystery and passion. The truth is our compass, Jade. It may lead us into turbulence, but it will also show us the way back home, to a redemption we never thought possible. As the first chapter of their intertwined fates drew to a close, every heartbeat, every whispered word, and every stolen moment carried the promise of both imminent peril and the possibility of transformation. Their journey was only beginning, a narrative woven with threads of fiery passion, bone-deep secrets, and the kind of betrayal that could crumble empires. Yet, amid the encroaching darkness, a quiet but powerful truth glimmered. Even the most shattered souls can rise anew when fueled by the defiant spirit of love and the relentless pursuit of freedom. Jade's heartbeat thundered like distant drums as she and Vaughn left behind the deceptive safety of the forest sanctuary. The night had surrendered to the inky embrace of pre-dawn, and the city's neon glow bled into the horizon. In that liminal space between night and day, every shadow whispered warnings and every rustle of leaves carried the weight of unspoken secrets. Their escape had been chaotic, a precarious balance between stealth and speed, and now, as they navigated through abandoned subways and deserted alleyways, the tension wound tightly around them like a noose. Their journey led them to an old railway station, a relic of bygone eras where faded posters and peeling paint silently chronicled the passage of time. The station, abandoned yet eerily vibrant with echoes of lost souls, became a makeshift refuge. Here, amidst the rust and decay, Jade and Vaughn found a rare moment to reflect on the dire circumstances that propelled them into this relentless flight from fate. The labyrinthine corridors of the station provided both cover and a symbolic passage between their old lives and the uncertain future looming ahead. In the dim glow of a broken light fixture, Vaughn unfurled a tattered map, its edges soft from constant handling. "We need to reach the safe house on Maple Street," he murmured, his voice a soft rumble that belied the urgency etched into every syllable. Jade leaned over, her eyes scanning the intricate lines drawn with an almost obsessive precision. "And if they catch up?" she asked, the tremor in her tone betraying her deep-seated fears. Vaughn's gaze hardened, and for a fleeting moment, the weight of his haunted past pressed upon him like a physical presence. "Then we do what we must," he replied quietly, "for freedom is forged in the crucible of defiance." As the first brittle rays of sunrise began to infiltrate the gloom, their conversation was interrupted by the sound of approaching footsteps. Shadows materialized at the edge of the station, their silhouettes uncertain and ominous. Jade's reflexes kicked in, she crouched low while Vaughn scanned the horizon. "We must move, now," he hissed as he ushered her towards a side exit. The duo melted into the labyrinth of derelict tunnels beneath the station, moving with the fluid grace of creatures well versed in the art of evasion. Their synchronized steps echoed a mutual understanding, a shared vow that they would risk everything for the possibility of redemption. In the confining darkness of the underground passage, memories came unbidden to Jade's mind, the bitter taste of betrayal at the hands of those she once loved, the unsaid goodbyes, and the echoing void left in the wake of her shattered past. Each memory stirred a cocktail of sorrow and determination that fueled her relentless stride. Simultaneously, Vaughn's mind was a battlefield of conflicting loyalties, the unyielding drive to embrace his destiny as an alpha and the crushing burden of secrets that had long haunted his lineage. His thoughts darted to the cryptic letters left behind by his estranged father, laden with clues about a hidden enemy that now threatened to engulf them both. The underground tunnels were a crucible of their emotions. As they crept along narrow corridors, the intermittent flicker of failing bulbs cast dancing shadows that morphed into monstrous apparitions in their imagination. Amidst that eerie ballet of darkness, their dialogue grew punctuated with urgent whispers and decisive commands. "Keep close," Vaughn urged, his tone leaving no room for dissent. "These tunnels conceal more than mere echoes." Jade nodded silently, her eyes reflecting both fatigue and fierce determination. This was not just an escape, it was a defiant march towards unraveling the truth, a truth tangled within the very fabric of her existence and that of the rebellious alpha who had become her unexpected savior. Above ground, the city was awakening to a facade of normalcy. The urban hustle belied the undercurrent of tension that vibrated in every clandestine corner. In upscale neighborhoods and in the gritty backstreets alike, murmurs of an elusive rebellion had begun to ripple through the populace. Rumors whispered in hushed tones at coffee shops and local diners spoke of an insurgency, a gathering storm of those oppressed by a system that sought to extinguish any spark of individuality or magic. Jade's own estranged family, long entangled in the machinations of power and greed, had reappeared in the form of a mysterious benefactor whose true intentions remained cloaked in ambiguity. Back in the dim confines of the safe house, a modest, time-worn dwelling on Maple Street, the air was thick with both hope and unspoken trepidation. While the structure offered temporary shelter, its walls bore silent witness to countless clandestine meetings and whispered confessions of betrayal. Here, in this unassuming abode, every object seemed imbued with fragments of history: a dusty photograph in a frayed frame, an antique clock that ticked ominously, and faded letters that hinted at familial bonds splintered by time. Jade's thoughts turned to her family, a lineage burdened with shadows and secrets, their fractured trust a constant reminder of the personal cost of survival. That evening, as dusk settled with a promise of ambiguous reprieve, Vaughn initiated a conversation that cut deeper than any physical wound. Sitting across from each other in the muted glow of a single lamp, he broke the pervasive silence. "My father left me more than just scars. He left a legacy of deception." His voice, laden with regret, vibrated against the stillness of the safe house. "For years I believed that my path was predetermined, shackled by the sins of my ancestors. But meeting you, Jade, has reawakened something within me, a possibility that the future might not be written in blood." Jade's eyes shimmered with both empathy and silent accusation. "You speak of legacy as if it were a chain," she countered softly, her tone laden with personal anguish. "But it's more than that, it's a web that has ensnared my entire existence. I was raised to believe that our blood, our history, was our destiny, and yet here we are, trying to redefine it." Her words hung in the room, charged with the gravity of a truth both bitter and transformative. For a moment, the safe house itself seemed to pulse with the echo of their confessions. Each admitted regret and aspiration, weaving a tapestry of resilience and longing. Their discussion, though laden with introspection, did not diminish the ever-present threat that lurked beyond the fragile walls of their sanctuary. Over the course of the night, muffled knocks and furtive glances through dusty windows served as grim reminders that their moment of respite was as transient as the shifting shadows. Outside, the agents of the oppressive regime were already mobilizing, a relentless force bent on quashing any spark of rebellion. The very energy of the city seemed to align against them, as if the urban sprawl itself had become an accomplice to those who desired control at the expense of freedom. Amid this treacherous game of cat and mouse, the past converged with the present in unforeseen ways. A coded message left at the threshold of their refuge, a single envelope sealed with an emblem long associated with betrayal, brought a chill to Jade's spine. The envelope contained a single typed letter that hinted at a covert alliance between her estranged relatives and the regime's highest echelons. Each word resonated like a resounding clap of thunder, shattering the fragile illusion of safety they had so painstakingly constructed. "Your family legacy is not a burden but a battleground," the letter stated cryptically. "Choose your allies wisely, or your pursuit of freedom will be your undoing." The message, ambiguous yet damning, forced Jade to confront the possibility that the deepest betrayal might not have been inflicted by a stranger, but might already have been seated in the very roots of her bloodline. Vaughn, sensing the shift in Jade's inner world, reached out to grasp her hand, a quiet gesture of solidarity amid mounting uncertainty. "We stand together even if destiny seeks to divide us," he affirmed with resolute intensity. His determination, as palpable as the chill in the night air, was a promise that no force, no matter how insidious, would succeed in fracturing the bond forged between two souls yearning for liberation. In the following days, the narrative of their journey took an unexpected turn. The duo found themselves entangled in an intricate network of allies and adversaries, each with their own vested interests in the unfolding drama. A clandestine meeting with a renegade historian, revered for his comprehensive knowledge of supernatural lineages and ancient curses, shed new light on the enigmas of Vaughn's past. In a forgotten library tucked away in a crumbling mansion, the historian meticulously unfurled dusty manuscripts that revealed a prophecy linking the fate of the shifter lineage to the revival of an ancient power, one that promised both cataclysm and salvation. "Your union," the old scholar intoned with a trembling certainty, "is the fulcrum upon which the scales of destiny shall pivot. Redemption and ruin are but two sides of the same coin." The weight of that revelation seemed to press upon them, infusing every word with both hope and foreboding. Yet even as they grappled with the enormity of their shared destiny, betrayal reared its head in the most unanticipated manner. A trusted confidant, a loyal member of their makeshift pack, turned traitor, lured by promises of personal gain and absolution from a haunting past. In a heart-stopping confrontation at the outskirts of the city, beneath a stormy sky that mirrored the turbulence in their souls, this betrayal unfolded. "You must understand," the traitor gasped between panicked breaths, "it wasn't just about loyalty. It was about survival." His confession, riddled with remorse yet laced with self-interest, sent ripples of shock through the group. The confrontation culminated in a tense standoff, leaving Jade and Vaughn questioning the very foundations of trust they had painstakingly built. In the ensuing chaos, allegiances fractured, and every whispered secret now carried the sting of potential treachery. Within the confines of the safe house, as tensions simmered beneath the surface, the couple found themselves isolated from an increasingly unreliable network of allies. Their dialogues grew more intense, and each conversation was imbued with the urgency to decipher the clues scattered before them. "Every step we take is a gamble," Vaughn admitted one storm-laden night as rain battered the windows like the relentless cadence of judgment. "But if we falter now, we forfeit the chance to reclaim our identities from the clutches of destiny." Jade's eyes, brimming with both defiance and sorrow, met his with unspoken resolve. "I will no longer allow the ghosts of my past to dictate who I am," she proclaimed, her voice a mixture of pain and fierce liberation. "I choose to write my story anew, even if that means standing alone against the tide." Their commitment to redefining their fate was not merely a shared ideal but a transformative crucible that reshaped them in the face of overwhelming adversity. As the days bled into nights and the narrative of their existence oscillated between hope and despair, the tangible sense of danger grew ever more palpable. The oppressive forces, like relentless specters, closed in on them from every side, and the very essence of freedom was being contested at a cost that transcended mere survival. In those tenuous hours, the safe house, a sanctuary that had briefly sheltered them from the storm, transformed into a silent tribunal where the past, present, and future converged in a dance of redemptive reckoning. Jade, now bearing the weight of her family's hidden sins and the burden of anticipated betrayal, gazed at her reflection in a shattered mirror. In that fractured image, she saw not only the scars of battles fought but also the glimmer of a soul unyielding in its quest for truth. "This is not the end," she whispered to her fragmented reflection, a solemn vow that reverberated in the stillness of the room. Outside, the winds carried whispers of a coming reckoning, a promise that the threads of fate were tightening into a tapestry where every act of defiance bore consequences that reached far beyond mortal reckoning. Vaughn and Jade, intertwined in their shared struggle, resolved to confront the looming storm head-on, their hearts steeled by the realization that love, however fragile, held the power to reshape destinies. Their eyes, shining with a potent mixture of vulnerability and determination, met in a silent accord. Together, they would rewrite the legends of their past and forge a path toward a redemption that defied all expectations. As twilight descended once more over the sprawling city, a city teetering on the edge of revolution, the safehouse door creaked open to reveal a shadowy figure whose identity sent a ripple of disbelief through both Jade and Vaughn. The stranger's presence, cloaked in mystery and burdened by cryptic symbols, was a harbinger of revelations yet to be unearthed. The figure's eyes, burning with a secret intensity, locked onto theirs with an urgency that spoke of imminent transformation. In that charged moment, the convergence of enemies, allies, and the remnants of forgotten truths promised to reconfigure their world in ways both profound and perilous. Every beat of their hearts, every whispered vow, now resonated with a burgeoning anticipation of the battles that lay ahead. In the charged silence, the stranger spoke but a single word, a word that encapsulated the promise of new beginnings and uncharted destinies. It was a word that transformed the lingering dread into a simmering hope, a spark poised to ignite a revolution that would defy time and fate. In the dim light of an early morning, as the city stretched awake with reluctant grace, Jade and Vaughn emerged from the subterranean labyrinth with hearts still pounding from the echoes of betrayal. Their brief respite had been violently shattered by the revelation of treachery within their ranks, an internal fissure threatening to engulf their fragile rebellion before it could fully ignite. With the safehouse left behind amid a haze of uncertainty, the duo embarked on a perilous mission: to unmask the traitor, reclaim lost trust, and unearth the deeply buried secrets that had haunted their lives for far too long. The journey took them into the heart of the city, a sprawling, concrete jungle interlaced with vestiges of forgotten opulence and modern decay. Everywhere they looked, remnants of old-world charm contested with the cold efficiency of urban sprawl. Side streets and hidden plazas offered both refuge and new dangers, each step an exercise in balance between hope and despair. Vaughn's eyes, still gleaming with a feral determination, scanned every dark corner, every furtive glance from passers-by. He knew that the traitor might be lurking among the many faces in the crowd, a mole whose ultimate allegiance lay not with freedom, but with a system determined to see their uprising crumble. As they navigated narrow lanes shadowed by ancient brick facades, a quiet intensity enveloped their conversations. Their dialogue was both strategic and confessional, a blend that served to solidify their commitment while exposing vulnerabilities that had previously been masked by bravado. "Jade," Vaughn began in a low, resolute tone as they paused before an aged building with ivy clawing at its walls, "if the enemy is closer than we ever feared, then we need to examine every connection we once trusted. Every whispered secret may hold a kernel of truth." Jade's gaze hardened as she replied, "I've spent years haunted by the deception of those I believed loved me. Today I choose to expose this festering betrayal, no matter the cost." Her voice trembled with a mingling of anger and sorrow, a testament to the scars left by past deceptions. Their investigation led them to clandestine meetings in forgotten corners of the urban sprawl. In a shadowed cafe tucked away from prying eyes, a place where the hum of espresso machines masked hushed conspiracies, Jade encountered Eleanor, an elder woman whose presence exuded an air of mystical authority and ancestral wisdom. Eleanor's delicate hands, marked by the passage of untold years, clutched a faded envelope that crackled with the memory of secrets. "Your family's history," she intoned softly, "is interwoven with promises, curses, and betrayals. It is said that every generation is tested by the weight of its legacy. To understand the betrayal now, you must first confront the truths left behind by those who came before." Eleanor's words were as enigmatic as they were foreboding, spurring Jade to re-examine the fragments of her past and question the narratives woven by her family's silence. Vaughn, ever the guardian of their shared mission, interjected with firm resolve, "We have little time to dwell on the mysteries of the past when the future is being rewritten by our own hands. Yet I cannot ignore that every secret has its price." Their conversation, laden with urgency and unspoken remorse, was abruptly interrupted by the arrival of a mysterious figure, a man shrouded in a long overcoat and a wide-brimmed hat that concealed his features. His sudden appearance stirred a ripple of tension as he slid into the vacant booth opposite Jade. In a hushed, gravelly voice, he said, "I have been waiting for this moment." The cryptic words sent shivers down Jade's spine and evoked memories of a long-lost relative whose name had only been whispered in hushed tones. As the stranger slowly removed his hat, revealing familiar eyes that gleamed with remorse and resolve, Jade realized that the betrayal ran deeper than either she or Vaughn could have anticipated. Seated across from the enigmatic visitor, Jade's heart raced. "Who are you?" she demanded, her voice a blend of curiosity and barely contained fury. The man's answer was measured, his tone both somber and laden with past anguish. "My name is Silas. I have borne witness to the sins of our lineage for too long, and now it is time to confess a truth that will shatter your carefully constructed world." His confession spilled forth slowly, like ink from a broken quill, recounting a history riddled with forbidden love, secret pacts, and the twisted machinations of power that had ensnared their family for generations. Silas admitted that, years ago, a fateful decision had set into motion a chain of events, a decision that had put him in the precarious position of betraying the inner circle in exchange for his own survival. "I never meant for it to go this far," he murmured, his eyes descending in remorse, "but the forces at work were larger than any one individual could control. In compromising my loyalty, I unwittingly sowed the seeds of our current downfall." Overwhelmed by the weight of his revelations, Jade's mind reeled with emotions that danced precariously between fury and desperate hope for redemption. Vaughn's stern visage softened briefly as he regarded Silas with an intensity born of shared burdens. "Why reveal this now?" he pressed, his tone laden with both suspicion and an earnest plea for clarity. "Because the time for silence is over," Silas replied, leaning forward in earnest. "You stand on the brink of uncovering not only the treachery among us but also a truth that has haunted our kind for centuries. The betrayal you discovered in the safe house was but the surface ripple of a far deeper wound, a wound inflicted by those who sought to control fate by manipulating our bloodline." The revelations in that crowded cafe ricocheted throughout the conversation like echoes in a cavern. Silas spoke at length about an ancient covenant, a pact between the original shifters and mysterious, benevolent forces of nature that promised eternal freedom in exchange for a heavy toll. This pact, he explained, had been corrupted over the centuries by greed, jealousy, and the insidious desire for power. "Every act of treachery has a mirror in our past," he insisted quietly, "and every betrayal we witness now is a manifestation of long-held grievances that can only be healed through the redemption of our true selves." His words struck a resonant chord with both Jade and Vaughn, stirring dormant memories and awakening in them a determination to mend the shattered bonds of trust. Yet even as they absorbed Silas's confessions, the realization lingered that time was a merciless adversary. External pressures, from the corrupt authority, from internal conflicts, and from the relentless pull of destiny, compelled them to take immediate and decisive action. Leaving the relative comfort of the cafe, the trio descended into an abandoned industrial district where decaying warehouses and rusted factories bore silent witness to the passage of time. Under the guidance of Silas, they sought refuge in an old textile mill, a labyrinthine structure whose maze-like corridors held remnants of a bygone era and the promise of hidden archives. In the hushed stillness of that vast empty space, amid beams of light slicing through dust-laden air, Jade pored over brittle documents and faded photographs. Each piece of evidence revealed a fragment of a convoluted family history, a tale of forbidden romances, unspeakable sacrifices, and alliances forged in the crucible of survival. The documents hinted at a secret meeting held decades ago, one that had implicated several of her kin in an act of betrayal so monumental that it had rippled through generations. "There is truth in these records," Jade whispered, her finger tracing the worn edges of a centuries-old ledger, "a truth that could either shatter or redeem us depending on how we harness it." Vaughn, ever the sentinel of the moment, paced nearby, his mind swirling with a mixture of tactical calculations and deeper, more personal reflections. Every new fragment of the story resonated with his own troubled past. He recalled the enigmatic letters from his estranged father, each one carefully encoded with secrets that hinted at a nexus between their cursed lineage and an ancient rebellion against fate. "Silas," he finally said, his tone a quiet command in the vast emptiness of the mill, "we must understand the full extent of this betrayal if we are to reclaim our destiny. Every piece of this puzzle brings us closer to either our salvation or our destruction." As twilight crept in, the dim corridors of the mill grew shrouded in a spectral calm. It was in this twilight between day and night that the burden of secrets deepened. The three conspirators gathered around a makeshift table, illuminated by a single dangling bulb that cast elongated shadows. Amid subdued conversation and hesitant revelations, Silas disclosed the existence of a hidden chamber, a vault of secrets carved out beneath the city itself, rumored to contain artifacts and documents that chronicled the origins of the Shifter legacy. Within that chamber, he explained with a tremor of certainty, lies the truth about the original pact. It is the key to restoring honor to our lineage and undoing the destructive curse that has long tormented our kind. His words ignited a spark of hope in Jade's eyes, a hope that was tempered by the realization that the answers they sought came at a price higher than any of them had ever envisioned. Determined to proceed despite the mounting risks, Jade, Vaughn, and Silas set out under the cloak of night. They trekked through derelict neighborhoods and crossed long-forgotten underground passages, guided by intuition and a tangle of cryptic clues left behind by ancestors whose voices now murmured through the pages of time. Along the way, fierce dialogues erupted between the trio as the pressure of impending revelations tested their fragile bonds. "Every step we take feels like we are walking on the edge of a blade," Jade confided, her tone both resolute and pained. "If what we uncover leads only to further betrayal, then what remains of us?" Vaughn, balancing authority with empathy, reassured her, "We may be standing on the precipice of ruin, but it is only by confronting the darkness within that we can hope to find redemption." Their words, exchanged in the silence of a moonlit alley, resonated deeply, a reminder that the pursuit of truth often demands sacrifices that cannot be undone. Navigating the maze-like network of abandoned tunnels beneath the city, they eventually discovered an iron-bound door obscured by layers of dust and graffiti, a door that marked the entrance to the hidden chamber Silas had spoken of. With trembling hands and pounding hearts, they forced the heavy door open, revealing an expansive crypt filled with relics of their tortured past. Faded murals depicted scenes of ancient rituals, and rusted chests contained letters and artifacts that told the story of a noble struggle for freedom, marred by catastrophic choices and immeasurable loss. In that eerie silence, with the ghosts of history watching from every shadow, Jade felt both the weight of destiny and the promise of renewal. "This is our reckoning," she breathed, her voice echoing off the cold stone walls. "Here, amidst the relics of a bygone era, we shall reclaim our narrative." The revelations inside the chamber were staggering, a web of interconnected betrayals, redemptions, and lost opportunities that spanned centuries. Among the relics lay a pristine journal, its pages filled with confessions and prophecies that challenged everything Jade had ever known about her family. As she read the delicate script in a trembling whisper, the words wove a tapestry of intricate connections, a forbidden romance between her ancestor and a shifter of noble blood, the sacrifice of loyal kin to appease an unholy pact, and the promise of a future in which the sins of the past could be atoned through love and sacrifice. Each line was an invocation of destiny, a call to arms, urging the living to mend what had been broken by time and treachery. Vaughn's eyes met Jade's as he absorbed the gravity of their discovery. "Redemption isn't a gift, it's a battle that must be fought with every ounce of our souls," he declared, the fervor in his tone matched only by the resolve in his gaze. Silas, his voice hoarse with regret and conviction, added, "Our past may be marred by betrayal, but it is also the crucible in which our future is forged. Let this chamber be a testament to both our failures and our enduring hope." In that moment, the three stood united by a common purpose, their individual struggles converging into a single all-encompassing crusade for truth and honor. As the night deepened and the shadows seemed to lean in closer, the ancient chamber bore silent witness to the resurgence of hope, a hope that, like the relentless tide, would wash away the sins of the past and kindle a rebirth of identity. Every secret unraveled, every bitter memory confronted, and every heartfelt dialogue shared in that solemn space built a bridge between what had been lost and what could yet be restored. The echoes of the past mingled with the promise of tomorrow, intertwining like the threads of a worn tapestry that had survived the ravages of time. Thus, in the quiet solemnity of that forgotten crypt, where the past whispered its timeless laments and the future shimmered with uncertain promise, Jade, Vaughn, and Silas realized that redemption was not an unattainable dream, but a battle that could be won only through acceptance, reconciliation, and the unyielding courage to confront one's darkest truths. Every heartbeat, every whispered secret, and every shared moment in that chamber served as a testament to the indomitable human spirit. A spirit that, even when battered by the storms of betrayal and the shadows of regret, could ultimately be renewed, reborn, and truly revived in the aftermath of the revelations from the hidden chamber. The weight of ancient secrets and the bitter tang of betrayal pressed on the trio like a relentless tide. Jade, Vaughn, and Silas emerged into the cold embrace of a moonlit night, each step echoing the uncertainty of their future. The air was thick with tension as they hastened away from the mill, determined to piece together the shattered remnants of a legacy built on love, loss, and an enduring thirst for freedom. At a deserted overlook on the outskirts of the city, where crumbling rooftops met endless skies, Jade found a moment of solitude. The wind, carrying whispers of times long past, brushed against her cheeks as she clutched the pristine journal, a beacon of fractured truths. In the journal's fragile pages, she discovered cryptic entries penned by ancestors whose lives had been irreparably intertwined with both the splendor and the agony of the shifter legacy. One passage, marked by faded ink and smudged symbols, recounted a forbidden union between her direct ancestor and one of Vaughn's forebears, a union that promised to unite disparate bloodlines under a single, defiant banner. The implications were staggering. Could it be that their fates were not merely intertwined by chance but ordained by a predestined design etched into the very fabric of their existence? Elsewhere, Vaughn wrestled with his own inner demons as he paced along a derelict bridge that spanned a restless river. His thoughts churned like the turbulent waters below, mirroring the inner chaos wrought by the recent truths. The echoes of his father's secret letters haunted him, a legacy of betrayal that had long driven him into the arms of rebellion. Amid the solitude of the night, he mulled over the possibility that his own destiny might be irrevocably linked to Jade's, through an ancestral thread of forbidden love and unhealed wounds. In a moment of introspection, he whispered to the darkness, "The past is a cruel teacher, but it is in its lessons that our future finds meaning. I must protect what we have, for our love carries the weight of generations." Silas, ever the reluctant bearer of confessions, felt the bitter sting of regret as he observed his companions from afar. His revelations in the cafe had opened old scars that he knew could never fully mend. Silas had always straddled the line between betrayal and loyalty. His actions, compelled by a desperate need to survive, had inadvertently thrust him into the role of the reluctant prophet. Now, burdened by the knowledge of a deeper conspiracy that threatened to unweave the very tapestry of their shared history, he resolved to atone for past misdeeds. "We cannot escape our past," he murmured to himself, "but perhaps in the union of our souls, we can rewrite its ending." Their individual reflections were abruptly shattered by the arrival of an unexpected visitor, a woman draped in an elegant, time-worn coat, her eyes flickering with a mixture of sorrow and determination. She introduced herself as Cecilia, a figure from Jade's childhood shrouded in mystery and long-repressed memories. Cecilia's presence elicited a myriad of emotions in Jade, nostalgia tempered by the sting of betrayal and the tentative hope of rediscovered kinship. "I have come not to disrupt your path, but to offer what you have long sought," Cecilia said in a hushed, deliberate tone. "There is more to your family's curse than even the journal reveals. There is a secret, a truth hidden so deeply that only the brave may face it, and that truth may yet bind us all together against the dark forces that conspire against our kind." The revelation of Cecilia's true identity ignited a turbulent dialogue among the trio. In a secluded corner of an abandoned estate, where the moonlight cascaded over crumbling statues and ivy-clad walls, the four gathered to confront the tangled roots of their legacy. Over steaming cups of bitter herbal tea, the conversation unfolded in measured tones. Cecilia divulged that she had once been a custodian of the family lore, a keeper of forbidden knowledge passed down through generations. She recounted legends of a primordial bond, a union that had united the shifter clans in an act of defiance against oppressive forces centuries ago. According to her, the clandestine romance between Jade's and Vaughn's ancestors was not merely an act of passion. It was a deliberate, sacrificial gambit to forge an alliance strong enough to resist the relentless march of tyranny. Her words resonated deeply with Vaughn, stirring memories of his own concealed lineage. "I have always known there was something more to our struggle," he confessed, his voice cracking with vulnerability. "A shadow looming in the backdrop that questioned everything we believed about our destiny. Cecilia, could it be that our fates were always meant to converge, that every scar and every betrayal were the prelude to something greater?" Jade, both entranced and tormented by the possibility, pressed further. If our ancestors made this unholy pact for a reason, then what of the curse that has haunted us all this time? How do we break free from the cycle of despair and treachery? Every secret I uncover leads me deeper into a labyrinth of familial guilt and lost love. Her words were laden with a desperate longing to reclaim the innocence that had been so cruelly stripped away by generations of disillusionment. Cecilia's gaze softened with empathy as she responded, "The curse is not an immutable fate but a challenge, a call to rise above the darkness that has shadowed our bloodline for too long. Redemption lies in understanding our past and, ultimately, in forging a new legacy where betrayal and regret give way to forgiveness and strength. But it will demand sacrifices that not everyone is prepared to bear." Amid these heart-wrenching exchanges, a startling revelation shattered the fragile calm. Evidence emerged that pointed to a mastermind manipulating the strings of their family's suffering, a figure who had long operated behind the scenes, orchestrating betrayals and sowing discord. Hidden within one of the ancient ledgers, a series of cryptic symbols led them to suspect that a powerful patriarch from Jade's estranged family had conspired with the oppressive regime. This revelation was a bitter pill to swallow. The realization that a blood relative, once thought to be a victim of circumstance, might have been complicit in the downfall of their kind, tore through the room like a jagged knife. In a moment charged with both fury and heartbreak, Jade confronted the specter of this unknown traitor. How could someone so close to our blood, someone who was meant to protect us, betray our very essence? She demanded, her voice trembling with a cocktail of rage and sorrow. The question hung in the air, laden with the promise of painful truths yet to be unearthed. Cecilia interjected gently, "The path to redemption is often paved with shattered trust. It is through these fractures that we must seek the light, no matter how dim it may seem." The emotional storm unleashed in that night of revelation left them all reeling. Amid the cacophony of doubts and desperate assurances, Vaughn and Jade found solace in each other's arms. Their whispered exchanges became a vow against the darkness, a commitment to stand together, even as the legacy of betrayal threatened to eclipse their shared future. "I will not let the sins of our ancestors define us," Vaughn declared, his eyes burning with an unyielding fire. "We are more than the scars they left behind. Our love, our defiance, is the key to our salvation." The confrontation with their past, however, was only the beginning. The group soon embarked on a harrowing journey into the very heart of the hostile city, a journey that took them deep into a labyrinth of abandoned buildings and forgotten underground passages. Each step forward revealed new layers of the conspiracy. Coded messages hidden in the graffiti of urban walls, secret chambers beneath crumbling temples, and eyewitness accounts from those who had seen glimpses of the elusive traitor. In one particularly tense encounter within the decaying corridors of a former industrial complex, they intercepted a conversation between masked operatives discussing plans that would tighten the grip of the oppressive regime over the supernatural enclave. The realization that their enemy was not only mortal but also deeply entrenched within their own community urged them onward with an urgency that defied despair. As their investigation intensified, so did the inner turmoil that each of them wrestled with. For Jade, every revelation about her family's treachery was a double-edged sword, cutting through the remnants of a once-cherished identity, yet also opening the door to the possibility of a renewed, self-fashioned future. In quiet moments under star-strewn skies, she reflected upon the painful tapestry of her lineage, the countless sacrifices, the cold betrayals, and the rare sparks of love that had managed to endure against all odds. "I can feel my ancestors' pain as if it were my own," she confessed during one of these moments of solitude. "But perhaps, through our choices, we can transform that pain into something beautiful, a future unburdened by the sins of the past." Vaughn, too, was on the precipice of an emotional abyss. His struggle was not only to stave off the memories of sorrow and regret but also to find a definitive purpose in a world that had long cast him as a reluctant rebel. Amid the perilous escapades and tense encounters, his partnership with Jade had become his anchor, a beacon of hope in an ocean of uncertainty. "Each step we take together is a step away from the chains of history," he murmured during one quiet interlude, his voice both resolute and reflective. "Our destiny is not pre-written in the ink of our forefathers. It is ours to define anew." Throughout the days that followed, as the quartet delved deeper into the dark underbelly of the city, tensions escalated and allegiances were tested. The haunting specter of betrayal loomed larger with every discovery, a constant reminder that each secret uncovered was both a key to liberation and a trigger for new wounds. The night before their planned infiltration into the regime's stronghold, a palpable silence fell over them during a final gathering. In a silent communion of looks and shared determination, they steeled themselves for the imminent confrontation with the puppeteer of their collective misery. Every whispered word, every fervent hope, and every tear shed in that moment served as both catharsis and a silent oath to reclaim not only their family's honor, but the freedom of every soul bound by an inheritance of sorrow. Under the dim glow of flickering streetlights, they prepared to move, stepping into the unknown with hearts ablaze with unyielding resolve. Their combined defiance would soon set the stage for the final reckoning, a battle that would challenge the very foundations of their world. With each breath, the legacy of betrayal and the promise of redemption intertwined, forming an intricate web of destiny that could either heal centuries of pain or plunge them all into an abyss of irrevocable loss. As they advanced into the looming heart of enemy territory, the night seemed to hold its breath, poised on the brink of transformation. Their unity, born of shared pain and nurtured by the relentless hope for a future unburdened by the past, was a living testament to the courage required to defy destiny. In that charged moment, as the specter of the traitor and the oppressive regime converged upon them, the fierce promise of self-determination shone brightly in their eyes. The battle for their legacy was no longer a solitary fight but a resonant call to all who had suffered under the yoke of betrayal, a clarion call for justice, love, and the audacity to reclaim one's destiny. Every heartbeat pulsed with the weight of their collective history and the inexorable promise that, together, they could rise above the darkest chapters of the past. United in defiance and guided by the luminous vision of their shared future, their journey pressed on, unstoppable and ever forward, ever determined to emerge, ultimately, truly in the dim glow of the pre-dawn hours, as the oppressive hum of a city teetered on the edge of an irreversible uprising. Jade, Vaughn, Cecilia, and Silas stood at the cusp of their final confrontation with the forces that had haunted them for generations. Every heartbeat pulsed like a drum of destiny, and the cool air, heavy with the scent of impending change, carried the collective weight of centuries of betrayal, lost hope, and the promise of redemption. They had come so far, wading through labyrinths of deceit, scouring abandoned corridors of forgotten histories, and unearthing truths that shattered their once sacred perceptions of family and loyalty. Now, on the threshold of a decisive battle with the regime that had long dictated the fate of the supernatural enclave, they were armed not merely with ancient relics and cryptic manuscripts but with an indomitable resolve to transform a cursed legacy into a future defined by choice and unity. The reclaimed journal from the hidden chamber, its brittle pages singing with the confessions and prophecies of their ancestors, served as both talisman and guide. In its faded ink, it forewarned of the chains that bound their bloodline and spoke of a covenant, a pact designed to harness not destruction but the seeds of hope. "The cycle can be broken," Jade murmured, her voice resonating with a fervor born of both her scars and the strength gleaned from the journey. Vaughn, standing resolutely beside her, nodded as he recalled the weight of his father's secret letters and the ghostly burden that had driven him into rebellion. "Our destiny need not be the sum of our ancestors' failures," he declared, eyes blazing with uncompromised determination. "It is ours to redefine." Their final plan was as audacious as it was perilous. Infiltrate the regime's sprawling headquarters, a towering edifice of cold steel and shadowed intentions, and confront the puppet master orchestrating the endless cycle of oppression. The headquarters, veiled behind layers of high-tech surveillance and guarded by men whose loyalty had been forged in the fires of unquestioning obedience, was the nexus of their collective suffering. Yet, as they approached the looming structure in coordinated silence, an undercurrent of anticipation and defiance electrified the air. Inside, in cavernous halls reminiscent of forgotten fortresses, oppression reigned supreme. The corridors were lined with monitors and cryptic symbols that seemed to pulse with an otherworldly energy. As the quartet advanced through these sterile passageways, the tension coiled tighter with every step, until the moment came when they were intercepted by the regime's elite guard. A terse standoff ensued beneath the searing glow of fluorescent lights, punctuated by terse commands and desperate, rapid exchanges. "Do not move," barked a voice over a loudspeaker, heavy with authority and disdain. For a heartbeat, silence fell, a pregnant pause pregnant with the promise of chaos. Then, in a mesmerizing display of unity and raw power, Vaughn stepped forward. "We are not your enemies," he declared, his deep, resonant tone echoing off the cold metal. "We are the heirs of a legacy that has been misinterpreted for too long. Today we reclaim our destiny and dismantle the shackles that have bound us all." In that moment, what had long been branded as treachery and betrayal transformed into a clarion call for liberation. The revelation came like a bolt of lightning, a twist that left friend and foe alike in stunned silence. Cecilia, stepping into the harsh light of the confrontation, revealed the final piece of the puzzle. The traitor who had once been condemned for secret collaboration was in fact a covert operative planted within the regime by a faction of reformers within its own ranks. Silas's revelations and the coded messages in our archives were designed not to incite division but to expose the regime's deepest corruption, she confessed, her voice trembling with both sorrow and hope. The betrayal we have faced was orchestrated so that, in its undoing, a greater alliance could be forged, one that spans the chasm between the oppressed and the oppressors turned reformers. Her revelation, delivered with a surprising calm, not only recast every painful memory in a new light but also served to stitch together the fractured remnants of their shared histories. In that charged moment, the regime's elite guard faltered, their expressions shifting from rigid authority to uncertainty as loyalty divided. The very structure that had once represented the unyielding grip of a despotic order trembled under the weight of its own secrets. Amid the chaos that ensued, Jade and Vaughn pressed forward, their path illuminated by the truth now blazing before them. Together with Cecilia and Silas, they rallied those within the regime who had dared to question the doctrine of absolute control. As the combined forces of the reformed and the rebel converged, every shadow in the massive hall seemed to breathe, every stone resonated with the echoes of centuries of pain and the promise of a dawning metamorphosis. A tumultuous battle unfolded, one in which steel clashed with supernatural fervor and the very fabric of legacy was torn asunder by newfound unity. Amid the symphony of determination, Jade found herself at the forefront of a pivotal exchange. Standing before an imposing figure, the mastermind behind the oppressive regime, a once feared patriarch whose eyes now reflected both defiance and regret, she faced him with an unwavering calm. "You believed control was strength," she stated, her tone a blend of challenge and compassion. "But strength lies in the ability to grow, to forgive, and to embrace our true selves, warts, scars, and all." The patriarch, his features softened by the intensity of her gaze, hesitated before finally conceding the insidious grip he had held over generations of souls. His downfall was not wrought in a blaze of unmitigated fury but in the slow, relentless illumination of truth, a truth that transcended the boundaries between enemy and ally. As the scattered remnants of a once formidable regime crumbled beneath the weight of collective resolve, the factions of shifters, humans, and reformers found their differences dissolving in the melting pot of shared destiny. In the ensuing quiet that followed the battle's crescendo, dialogues of reconciliation replaced cries of conflict. The oppressive symbols that had once adorned the regime's banners were repainted with motifs of unity, a living mural symbolizing the end of an era and the birth of an alliance that would rewrite the future. Amid whispered promises of rebuilding and heartfelt apologies for past transgressions, the long-ignored voices of the oppressed now resonated with newfound authority in shaping a world where every soul could thrive without the chains of predetermined fate. Amidst this transformative scene, Silas, whose own journey had been marred by the twin demons of guilt and survival, stepped forward with an unexpected proposal. "Let us establish a council of both shifters and those who have served within the old order, an assembly that will oversee the equitable restoration of justice and ensure that our mistakes are not repeated." His words, once laden with the bitterness of regret, now sparkled with the refracted light of possibility. The proposal was met with nods and murmurs of assent, symbolizing a pivotal moment where the scars of betrayal were reconfigured as the stepping stones to a better, more inclusive future. In the aftermath of their victory, as the sun cast its golden light upon a city once shrouded in perpetual twilight, Jade and Vaughn found themselves in a moment of quiet reflection amidst the ruins of the old headquarters. The world around them was reborn, a cityscape pulsing with the vibrant hues of liberation, where the lessons of the past had been woven into the very foundation of tomorrow. In that gentle calm, their eyes met with an intimacy forged through the crucible of relentless struggle and the shared conviction that the future was theirs to command. "I never imagined that the legacy of betrayal could give rise to such profound redemption," Jade confessed softly, her hand resting gently against Vaughn's. Her voice carried the weight of every sacrifice, every tear, every ounce of pain, but also the glimmer of an undying hope that was now tangible in the morning light. "Our journey was fraught with darkness, but together, we have summoned a brilliance that transcends even the bitterest of pasts." Vaughn smiled, a gesture that illuminated the myriad transformations etched upon his soul. "In every drop of despair, there was a seed of hope waiting to bloom," he replied, his tone earnest and resolute. "The paths we walked were treacherous, and though we were battered by betrayal, we have emerged not as broken relics of our lineage but as architects of a future we choose to create." As the day fully broke, the city, Its architecture, once characterized by oppression and foreboding, now stood as a testament to resilience and unity. The tale that began as one of defiance and flight had culminated in an unforeseen convergence of enemies turned allies. The once disparate threads of personal grief and fractured heritage were braided into a tapestry of shared purpose and collective renewal. With the oppressive regime dissolved and an unexpected coalition rising from the ashes, the protagonists realized that their true victory was not in the vanquishing of a tyrant but in the triumph of a love and spirit strong enough to transform an entire legacy. In the waning moments of that triumphant day, as ceremonies of reconciliation and festive gatherings filled the streets, the narrative of their lives took on a new cadence, one in which every individual, whether former adversary or lifelong companion, played an essential role in building a new destiny. The final, stunning twist was not just a matter of political realignment, but a deeply personal epiphany. Each secret, every painful betrayal, and all the scars born of relentless struggles were the necessary catalysts for the transformation of not just a lineage, but of the human spirit itself. That evening, beneath a sky awash with stars that whispered of ancient promises and newly kindled dreams, Jade and Vaughn reunited in a quiet, secluded garden where the fragrance of night-blooming flowers filled the air with hope. Here, amid the delicate interplay of shadow and light, they vowed to honor the legacy of those who had suffered and sacrificed before them, ensuring that the wounds of the past would serve only as reminders of the strength required to pursue true freedom. Their whispers of everlasting commitment merged with the night as if to affirm that, despite the twists of fate and treacherous betrayals, love in its purest form was the ultimate redemption. In that final, breathtaking crescendo of transformation, as the city celebrated its newfound unity and the chorus of reconciliatory voices rose in one triumphant anthem, every conflict found its resolution and every heart its healing. The tapestry of shattered legacies was mended with the threads of renewed purpose, and at long last, fate was rewritten not by the weight of history, but by the luminous force of change.